island of Tenerife experienced one of its most tragic days as rough seas led to multiple incidents along the coast. 3 people lost their lives and 15 were injured. Addressing the US military strikes on the alleged drug smuggling vessels in the Pacific, the EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas urged that international law be upheld.
A massive blackout veiled over Kyiv and Kharkiv after Russian forces carried out overnight attacks on Ukrainian energy facilities.
Ahead of this week's parliamentary election in Iraq, members of the security forces and displaced people cast their ballots on Sunday in early voting. The island of Tenerife experienced one of its most tragic days on Saturday as rough seas led to multiple incidents along the coast. 3 people lost their lives and a further 15 were injured in different parts of the island. The Canary Archipelago had been on pre-alert for coastal hazards with warnings of exceptionally large waves. The most serious incident occurred in Puerto de la Cruz, where 10 people were swept into the water from a quayside. 1 woman was found in cardiorespiratory arrest and was confirmed dead, while 3 others suffered critical injuries. In a separate event, 6 French tourists fell into water at Taganana after being hit by large waves. The lifeless body of another man was found floating in the sea off Granadilla de Abona beach. Late in the afternoon, a helicopter recovered another man from the sea, but he was confirmed dead due to his injuries. Authorities are urging the public to heed warnings as waves have reached up to 4 meters high. The EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas is attending a summit in Colombia overshadowed by US military strikes in the region. Speaking at the event, Kallas said the EU's position is to uphold international law, where the use of force is only justified in self-defense or with a UN resolution.
Under international law, you can use force only for 2 reasons, either self-defense or on the basis of UN Security Council resolution.
The meeting between the EU and Latin American and Caribbean states has been marked by divisions over the US operation targeting alleged drug-carrying vessels. According to the US Defense Secretary, 14 strikes have killed 69 people on boats near Venezuela and in the Pacific since September. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has called the deaths extrajudicial executions. The relevance of the summit has also been questioned due to the absence of senior leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, whom Kallas is representing.
A massive blackout was observed in the Ukrainian capital Kyiv and the northeastern city of Kharkiv after Russian forces carried out overnight strikes targeting Ukrainian energy facilities. The attacks targeted 2 major Ukrainian energy providers' infrastructure in the Sumy and Chernihiv regions, which supply power to multiple cities. Centrenergo, one of Ukraine's largest power companies, said 2 of its thermal power plants were struck, which feed energy to the capital and Kharkiv. Ukrenegro also suffered similar attacks, but announced on Sunday morning that power had been restored in most of the affected regions. Ukraine's foreign minister Andrei Sybiha slammed the attacks, calling them a deliberate Russian ploy to indirectly harm civilians as winter approaches. Meanwhile, Ukraine also carried out strikes of its own against Russia's energy sector. A thermal power plant in Voronezh and a combined heat and power plant in Belgorod were targeted, cutting power to tens of thousands of people, according to regional officials.
Ahead of this week's parliamentary election in Iraq, members of the security forces and displaced people cast their ballots on Sunday in early voting. An estimated 1.3 million army and security personnel and around 26,000 displaced people are eligible to vote before Election Day on Tuesday. The election will help determine whether Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani gets a second term amid fears of a wider regional conflict. Displaced Yazidis, many of whom fled their homes over a decade ago after attacks by the Islamic State group, voted at a camp near Dohuk. Many have still not been able to return home because of political disputes and a lack of infrastructure. In Baghdad, Iraqi soldiers and police voted, as well as members of the Popular Mobilization Forces, a coalition of primarily Iran-backed militias. The fate of these militias will be a complicated issue for the next parliament amid tensions between Baghdad and Washington. 7,744 candidates are competing in the election, most from parties largely aligned with sectarian interests.
Η Ελλάδα αναδεικνύεται τα τελευταία χρόνια σε σημαντικό ενεργειακό κόμβο στην νοτιοανατολική Ευρώπη, αξιοποιώντας τις ενεργειακές υποδομές της και τη γεωγραφική της θέση για τη μεταφορά ενέργειας μεταξύ Ευρώπης, Μέσης Ανατολής και Βόρειας Αφρικής. Παράλληλα με τη διατλαντική συνεργασία μεταξύ Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών ενισχύεται ο γεωστρατηγικός ρόλος της Ελλάδας. Για όλα αυτά συζητούμε με τον Αμερικανό Υπουργό Ενέργειας, Chris Wright. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, energy security has become a pillar of transatlantic strategy. How sustainable is U.S. support if geopolitical tensions continue?
Oh, I think the support's quite sustainable. You know, we've been allies with the European nations for the whole history of the United States. Our resources are immense. Our desire to grow the partnership, both economic and national security, is strong. Yeah, the United States will be here for the long run.
With Europe reducing its dependency on Russian energy, how does the U.S. see its own role? I mean, more like a long-term partner or just a crisis supplier?
Oh, no, we view it very much as a long-term supplier, very much as a long-term supplier. United States natural gas production is more than twice Russian natural gas production, and ours is growing rapidly. And our export capacity is expanding even more rapidly than our gas production is expanding. So no, our goal, President Trump's agenda is prosperity at home and peace abroad. We think nations that are well supplied with energy have greater economic opportunities, greater prosperity, and having these cross-border, cross-ocean energy cooperations leads to long-term sticky relationships and drives peace in the world.
Projects like Alexandroupolis LNG terminal and interconnectors to the Balkans have shown again the strategic importance of Greece. How does Washington see Greece's growing role in Europe's energy security architecture?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. And Greece is a tremendous partner. Look, Greece is historically a shipping powerhouse. Something like 20% of global shipping and over a third of all LNG, liquefied natural gas shipping, is done by Greek companies. But when the Russian dominated as the energy supplier into Europe, Greece was the end of the line, was just a node at the end of the energy transportation system. Now we've seen a totally different role for Greece. Greece is now the gateway from overseas, from the United States, to American energy as it flows into Europe. I think it's huge economic benefits for Greece, and it's great for the United States to have such a long-lasting ally and partner as Greece playing this role as the gateway for American energy to Europe.
And since we cannot discuss energy without mentioning environment, I would like to ask you, you have expressed very specific views about climate change. You have said that the threat is exaggerated. Please explain these views to us. And I would also like to ask you if you're going to attend UN's climate talks in Brazil this November.
I won't make the climate talks this year. I think there's a very good chance I will go next year. Look, I've been working, studying, writing, reading about climate change for over 20 years, very involved in that discussion and debate. So I follow very closely the science of climate change and the economic efforts and the studies on climate change. It is a real, slow-moving, global physical phenomenon. The world has been decarbonizing for 200 years, from wood to coal to oil to gas, ultimately to nuclear. So I think you will see continued reduction in greenhouse gas intensity per unit of energy produced. I don't even know when global greenhouse gas emissions will peak. We still have 1 billion people living wealthy, wonderful lives and 7 billion people wanting that. So I think we're going to see many, many decades of growth in energy production, likely continued gradual rises in greenhouse gas emissions. Fortunately, a more energized, wealthier world is better able to withstand any changes. Climate change is a real thing, but it's just been wildly exaggerated for political purposes. I think it's very unfortunate.
Secretary, thank you very much for this discussion.
Thank you so much for having me.
To mark its 75th anniversary, the Magnum agency is exclusively showcasing the work of female photographers. Visitors to CO Berlin can see when they think it is close enough.
Es ist für uns eine wichtige Ausstellung, weil sie die Veränderung zeigt, die die Agentur über die Jahrzehnte durchgemacht hat, dass wir uns eben auch mit der Zeit mitentwickeln, indem wir jedes Jahr junge Fotografen in die Agentur aufnehmen.
One of these voices is Nusha Tavakolian from Iran. For her, a picture often begins with a long conversation.
At first only we had to talk for hours to try to understand each other and then find a common ground, and then they kind of gave me permission to portray them.
Tavakolian wants to freeze time with her portraits.
You freeze a moment and then you give the viewers a possibility to look at what you capture as long as they want to.
It's not about the privilege of an expensive camera.
Now everybody have this tool in their hand, and it's not about being privileged or not. It's about what you have to say.
That's exactly what the exhibition shows. Stories told in series of images instead of words.
Es geht eben Menschen auf der ganzen Welt, in ihren Communities, und es geht Politik, Gesellschaft, Zeitgeschichte. Und das können wir mit unseren Handybildern so nicht erzählen.
Close enough, a view of the world through the eyes of Magnum photographers is on display at CO Berlin until January 28th.